Are you serious? Are you serious? Folks, welcome to this broadcast. Wow, you talk about excitement. The market is roaring. The jobs are up. The people are excited. They're dancing in the streets. And I literally had to reach out and pull Bob Kudla away from his desk. He's working stock deals so fast. People are excited. Bob, welcome to the broadcast today.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, literally, I'm finishing a trade up, and I have 20 seconds to go. I said, but we couldn't delay our broadcast, so I'm watching both for 1 second, and then you'll have my full attention.
What's been happening? America seems to going through all kinds of things, but we don't want to get too excited because this trade war between the United States and China, this thing doesn't seem to go away. And anytime I hear the word war, I don't care what it is, tug of war, I don't care what it is, it feels confrontational. So, and let me just say to the live audience that's coming in and joining us today, if you have questions, feel free and put those in the chat room. We can throw some of those questions at Bob today as well. Bob, feeling a little apprehension when I hear the word trade war, but
Not really, but it's really going to be afterwards, and the problem is Trump has to be the parent here. We had a foreign policy, and we've had an economic approach that literally has hollowed out our country. And, so we've basically given away all of middle America's jobs, and we replaced them with what I call the Corona world, where everybody's sitting in a city. They're drinking a Corona, they're at Starbucks, they're driving an Uber, they're on their Twitter, they're doing Facebook. But, those jobs all pay minimum wage. And we basically lifted all our high paying jobs, which is bad in one sense. But the other sense, Paul, is that you lose that, what they call that intellectual property. So we're going through a restructuring here, and Trump has to be the parent. And so the only downside that I see to this trade war is that we're going to have costs that are going to be coming into the economy faster than the wages are going to be able to pick it up. And eventually wages will catch up, because what Trump's doing is, I call it, he's creating a boiler room. So look, you can't just dump your steel into our country anymore. Well, guess what? The 5 or 6 steel mills or 10 steel mills we have here now, well, the people who work at those mills are now going to be able to demand higher wages. Okay? And so that'll trickle through over the next couple of years. And, you pick the industry. Cars may cost more for a couple of years before, the people can afford to pay higher prices, things of that nature. But make no mistake, Paul, we did not confront China on this, and confront we must, that China would bury us. We literally would be truly a third world country, because service jobs do not pay like manufacturing jobs pay. And Trump gets it. And look, the other thing too, you just can't keep shoving everybody into 6 cities in the country, right? Everybody can't live in New York or Washington or Chicago or the 3 big cities on the West Coast, or Washington, D.C., So he's spreading it out so that, the cost of living in those cities are where people can't even afford it. Like my daughter works at an ice skating rink, and the 2 managers that work there are getting married. And so they're getting married, and they're moving into an apartment complex, which is a 2-bedroom apartment, with another married couple, because they can't afford it. And these are managers at an ice skating rink. And so their careers are topped. So those are the kind of things that I think are going to have to balance themselves out. So absolutely not worried about the trade war. It needs to happen, and it's going to happen with Europe. It's going to happen with Japan. It's going to happen with China. If I could segue a little bit, Japan is doing something really, really interesting, Paul. They're pretty savvy. Look, they got on Trump's good side early. Even though Saudi Arabia has its own issues, I'm not going to really discuss the moral aspect of it. Japan and Saudi Arabia made decisions early on how they wanted to deal with President Trump, because they both need him for security. So instead of being really antagonistic like Europe has been and China has been, they co-opted President Trump in a way in which they said, we'll work with you. And so what Japan is doing is they're putting together a sovereign wealth fund. Instead of now just buying and buying and buying our bonds, and we get nothing in return, what they're going to do is they're going to put that currency into a fund, and then they're going to go ahead and bring that over to the country, and they're going to invest in infrastructure projects. So you're going to hire people. And so those are the kind of things that I think you're going to see more and more of. Saudi Arabia, the same thing. They went ahead and they just bought a boatload of our stuff. And you know, China and Europe, they're going to have to play or they're going to get shut out of the markets. And Mexico is going to be an interesting case too, because that gentleman, before he was elected, he was very, very, very antagonistic towards President Trump. Once he got elected, he said, hey, look, I think there's ways in which we can work together. And I don't know if it was you that I talked about this last month or somebody else, is that he's actually going to put a fund together. And one of the things he'll do is to help stem the immigration. He'll help fund the wall. And so if they could come to terms with a trade policy, he knows that he can't handle these guns going south. He knows the drugs coming north are a problem, not just for the U.S., because it gives so much wealth to these gang members that causes him to not be able to rule the country. So, you know, these things have to happen.
Well, you know,
how's that for a 5-minute one?
That was a imagine that. You know, Mexico would actually end up funding the wall, which is what Trump has been saying is going to happen, but not revealing exactly how. In the meantime, Trump's got to get the wall going, so he needs Congress to step up and start to give about $20 billion, but he wants to recuperate it back through trade and through cooperation with Mexico, as you just explained. Let me ask you a question, because even though this trade war with China, I believe he's using the trade war on China for twofold reason. One, to get North Korea in a headlock, basically saying to China, you get him under control or I'm going to really hit you hard. I think he's doing the same thing to Russia over Iran. It's going on in the back room. We'll see. It's starting to play out. He just announced today he's going to hit Iran hard with sanctions. But let's be honest. He went to the European Union and he told them, guys, this is not going to work. These tariffs won't work. And they come back a week and a half later and they've done away with all tariffs and they're going to buy the soybean. I mean, what kind of a deal? That was a masterful move. I mean, was that not the art of the deal?
Oh, yeah, look, for sure. President Trump knows that he has all the cards. You know, they tried to threaten him. They tried to say that the American people are going to suffer. And every time Trump announces another set of sanctions, the stock market goes up another 2%. Because people are starting to sit there and say, oh, wait a minute. So if these companies come back into the U.S., yeah, things may cost a bit more, but aren't they hiring people? And if they hire people, does that mean that they're not on food stamps or on welfare anymore? And does that not mean that there's more tax revenue coming into the city, state, and federal coffers? You know, so people start seeing, oh, and by the way, you know, 1/3 of our budget is these social programs. And if they could alleviate that, and then there's more what they call velocity, Paul. The money stays in the country and it circulates among the companies in the country. That also creates tax revenue. So there's so many good guys that people started to figure it out. Remember, he first started talking tariffs, the stock market started crashing, remember? And then all of a sudden he talks tariffs, people are like, oh, wait a minute, I don't see the downside here. And that's what Trump's been saying. What Trump does really well, what people don't realize it, he talks really big publicly, but he absolutely is looking at win-wins across the board. You know, he's talking to Mexico about, look, this is how it works for both of us. If we do this, it could be a win-win for you. Same with North Korea. Same with Russia. People are assuming that he cut some sort of deal with Putin because he wants to separate them from China. Look, right. You're European, you're not Asian, you know. Why don't you come back into our family here? You know, yeah, you know, we'll do this or that with you. And, oh, by the way, oil is really important to you. Now, oil is really important to us. And, oh, by the way, China needs to import oil. And, oh, by the way, we'll cut them off of Iran oil. You know, and then everything works for all of us. You know, so there's a lot of chess pieces in motion that our prior presidents were afraid to push onto the board, where Trump's like saying, "Oh my gosh, you guys are giving me all this ammunition. I'm going to use it for the American people, and it's going to work out just fine."
Yeah, I think that he's used to dealing with international different groups of people and cultures, and he's not afraid to push back. Where most of the politicians that we've been witnessing for the last 40 years have been basically timid when it comes to trade deals, negotiations. They've been very timid, and they're run by the polls. What does the polls say? Or those that have supported them, the big money men that put them in power. They have to go ask them, what should we do here? What should we do there? And it's basically scratching everybody's back that put them in power. Trump's not like that, as you said. He doesn't have any allegiance really that he has to protect. He can swap deals. He can horse trade. He can push back. He can smash somebody. He can pick somebody up. He can threaten. He can do the hammer and then the olive branch. And I think he, because of that, he's always thinking America first. Let's be honest, he really is. And but at the end of the day, I think it helps the other countries too if they go along with it. I mean, he doesn't just bury them. You can't go around just burying everybody and expect to be okay. But we're the number one consumer, Bob. You know this. We're the number one consumer in the world. So the more manufacturing base we can keep sliding over here, the stronger the wage dollar. The wages will go up. They have to go up if the better paying jobs come in. Am I right?
Yeah, and look, technology is changing too. A lot of people always tell me, "Oh, China is going to be the next it," and then I point out a few things to them to show them why. And what I'll tell you today is that technology is becoming at such a level in terms of automation, robotics, machine learning, and the distance China has to cover, what I would call speed to market, is that it's leaving China behind. Look, China's big advantage was they had no labor laws, they had no environmental laws, they had no morals. In terms of from a business standpoint, it's caveat emptor. They don't cover their warranties, and then they turn around and they have a 30 to 40% wage differential. Well, that wage differential now is collapsing, and if you have an automated factory here in the U.S., instead of hiring 200 people before and becoming unprofitable, you probably can build the same amount of output with 50. So you don't need China. Oh, and by the way, if you need the parts by Tuesday, you'll get them by Tuesday. And in China, if you want those parts by Tuesday, if they're not already on their way,
you're not going to get them.
It's 4 months.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that's happening too. And so you're going to see, and we talked about this before, the big reset last month, is that you're going to see more and more what I call the tribalism coming back in. People are going to want to be more local. They want to deal with people they know. They want to make sure that their warranties are covered. Look, I own a solar energy company. I've owned it for 12 years, and I would never, ever, ever subject my clients to a Chinese solar panel. I bought Japanese, I bought Korean, I bought Taiwanese, I bought American. And I bought American until the American companies just went out of business. Because I needed to make sure that if something happened to something in the last 20 years, I have a warranty that can be covered.
Right.
So those are things that are changing for China. So from American standpoint, these are all good things, Paul. Can I flip it and tell you the things that are what people should worry about?
Okay. America-China trade war, is it going to help or hurt? Here comes the hurt.
Yeah, so one of the things that'll probably end up out of this is, look, China, it requires 1 acre of arable land to feed one person. Okay? America has a credit balance of acres to people. China has a debit balance. That means that they have 5 times the number of people than they have arable land. So they basically right now are pushing it to the limit where they could feed. They have to import half of their food stuff, and they keep urbanizing their land. So they get less and less and less. And the other thing too is that every time they get subsidies to buy more, to put more food in the ground, they just dump fertilizers and pesticides on the land, and eventually that makes the land worthless. I'm sure you have some farmers listening. You'll understand they basically are just you know turning the land into wasteland, and so they have to import more and more and more food. And I think one of the things that's going to come out of this trade agreement is that China is going to suck more food into their land from our country. I'm not in favor of it because that still means we're kind of colonial, but we don't want to give them any of our high tech stuff because they'll just turn around and re-engineer it. So we're going to see food prices start to rise once we get this done. In fact, it's already starting to rise. 8 to 10% increase we've had over the last 2 years on annum. And now we're starting to see it at the farm level. So the farmers are all worried. I tell the farmers, do not worry long term. The stockpiles around the world are starting to dry up, and you're starting to see firming in prices. And so, we told our subscribers, in fact, today, last week we bought wheat, WEAT, it's an ETF, really easy. And then we closed that on Friday for a profit. And then today we bought an ETF called DBA. That's all the food stuff. Because I think this is going to be secular, Paul. It's not going to be cyclical. I think we've had a long run of low food prices, and people, especially people my age, your age, and higher, you're going to need to be in things in the stock market that are going to outpace the cost of your living. And because that's one of the things that we're seeing here, over 50 years of age, they're seeing a massive increase in bankruptcies, Paul. Probably a lot of it to do with the cost of rent and the cost of healthcare. Yep. People just can't absorb it. I mean, you just physically can't absorb the cost. So people are just racking their credit cards to the max and then just going to court and getting them discharged. And so that's a problem until we can get more, wage growth into the country. But it's causing some issues. And that's one thing I'm just trying to wave the flag to people saying, hey, look, you really, really need to look at your portfolios to make sure you're in things that are what I would call inflationary for things that you absolutely need to survive. Everything else is going to become more deflationary. You're going to see the FANG stocks to fall off and things like that nature. But the things that you absolutely need to live on are going to go up in price. And food's going to be one that's going to be the most visible to most people. And gas and oil have been going up too. So you're going to get a double whammy here again. And so people our age probably remember the 70s. There's a chance that stagflation could be what that looks like.
Bob, price folks, this is Bob Kudla from Trade Like a and great company, great guy, loves the Lord and really helps people understand, can get you started if you would like to be involved in doing some trading. And with the market continuing to grow in a constant, it's not like it's rushing to the top, but we see this steady growth and steady security with the job markets being strong. I think Bob's telling you the good and the bad. That's the thing about it. He'll give you the full truth of it. He won't just give you the pie in the sky kind of thing. And so, Bob, looking at this way, you hit the nail on the head. Healthcare cost is killing us. It is killing Americans. They have to decide, are they going to have health care or are they going to pay the rent? Are they going to eat or their medication? So this is a major issue, and I know that when John McCain did the thumbs down thing, I don't think he understands what he did to the American people. And where do you see this going? Do you see? I mean, the midterms are coming. Is there a blue wave, and if there is, what does the market do if the Democrats take back, let's say, the House? What is going to happen here as it relates to the midterm elections and the economic fallout from it?
I mean, our view is that
our view is that I think the market's pushing really hard right now to make all-time highs, and for the people in Wall Street to maximize their I don't call it their profit. It's really profit for the people, but it maximizes their bonuses, because as the higher the stock market goes, if they can lock in those gains, then they can lock in their money. And I think a lot of people are going to want to lock this stuff in before we get to the election. In September, we're going to have another rate increase. We're getting $40 to $50 billion of the Fed taking money back out of the economy, and we have an election coming up. Prudence would dictate that people will get less risky. And I think they're trying to push for all-time highs so everybody could ring the bell and say, hey, we did it. Trump can say, hey, look what I did. And then now he can blame everything else on whatever else. Hey, look, the Democrats are making noise. This is happening here. This is happening there. Look, I got us to all-time highs, guys. Stay with me. And
Right.
I think that's what's going to happen. And I think when we come out of the election, I just don't know what is, because they always lie to us, Paul. So, I was reading the thing in Tennessee. They said this Democrat was going to be, he was leading by 4 points. He lost by 20. So, they definitely muck it up so much that you just don't know where it's going to happen. My view is, did you see the polling on the African American community? Trump's up 10% in 3 months.
Yes.
He has 1/3 of that community now supports him, which is
29%.
never happened before. In the Hispanic communities at 40%, and they're the people that are supposed to hate him the most because of the wall.
Right.
And so I think people may be surprised that the strength that Trump will bring coattails to the election. It's just that some of these Republicans, I don't know if we want them.
Well, Trump's up, I think he's got about 29% approval rating right now, or support from the African American community and the Hispanic community. Like you said, up 40% from where it was. And part of that is because of the job market. I mean, more people are working, more people are and also, when I hear the word socialism, when I see politicians stand up and say, we want to take you to socialism, I'm a socialist, we're going to go to socialism. And then I look at Venezuela, Bob, I mean, seriously, how many times do we have to go through this to not understand? No one wants to lose their freedoms. And let me ask you a question. Some of the people are making comments over here. They're saying, you mentioned that food prices are going up. Now, I understand when gas prices go up, transportation gets so high, food prices go up with it. But are you saying food prices are going up even despite whether fuel does or not?
Yes.
Yeah, so what we're seeing is that there's, food now has become an international commodity because of a lot of it's moving across borders. And so we've had a couple really good years of harvest. This year, the harvests are going to be average to a little bit down. And in fact, in Europe, they're a mess. And so you're starting to see firming across the board in terms of ag prices. That's what we're going to see come through the system into our grocery stores next year. But even in that vein, is that you're seeing 8 to 10% increases in prices, and it could be even higher. But the grocery stores are eating some of that stuff, and so they're taking it on their margins because they just don't want to lose all their customers. But I mean, I do the shopping for my family, so I could see what's moving up and what's moving down. And so the general trend is packaged goods have gone up a lot. A bag of spaghetti used to be $1, now it's $1.50. When it goes to $2, they bring it back to $1.50 now. That kind of stuff, you're starting to see the creep. And my daughter always says, Dad, this bag's full of air. She buys a bag of chips or something.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing the inflation that way. But I watch the budget and I see how much more it costs me. And we don't even go out to eat anymore. And we do okay financially because, it takes your breath away. You go out to you just go out to a hole in the wall place with 3 people, you're at $40. Who has $40 to go out to eat?
Right.
And that's just craziness. And I think that's what we're going to see, that all cycle through. And the fact that if they can't pass it on, then those companies are going to be in serious hurt. At the same time, wage prices are going up. So yeah, it's not going to stop. In fact, if you're an adherent to the solar minimum philosophy and the global cooling, which I am, I think the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to see a major growing region that's going to get hit really hard. And Europe's going to be it this year, but Europe's peripheral to that. If the United States or if China or if Russia or if Australia, Canada, one of those areas loses a crop, then prices are going up 20, 30%. That's how tight everything's become.
Folks, it's likeagenius.com, or you can call the phone number 310-595-8626. That's 595-8626, tradelikeagenius.com. Bob, what's some of the programs? Can you help people get started in the market if they would like to learn? What can you do for them?
Yeah, I mean,
we do four things, Paul. One is that we have education. So depending on what you want to trade, we can teach you how to set up your charts for stock trading or for futures trading or for trading binary options or even cryptocurrencies. And some exciting things are happening there again. And then we also add to that is if people want to actually then trade with us, we have trading rooms and we have trading signals that we provide for people. And then we have software for people who actually want to take a little bit more of a hands-on approach where those signals are put into the computer itself so they can actually see the buy and sell signals. And then finally, for some people, in fact, when I get off the phone with you, I'm going to do a coaching session. So where we can actually, people get some one-on-one time with one of us to help them work their portfolio, get a tune-up or hey, how do I set up my charts? Or, geez, just how do I even get started? So that's what we do. And then we put some price discounts on for your listeners. They can just check them out themselves. Just go to the site and scroll down, and we have 6 of them running right now, and take advantage of them. We price it so that it's affordable, and then that people can actually get a return on their investment of investing in us, so that we can help them make money every day.
You need. He has great programs help get you started. Some of you who maybe have already been trading and you already understand that, you may want to take advantage of these great tips and great forecasting that Bob does. And you've been doing that, Bob. You've been having a great year this year. And tell them a little bit about, I mean, you blew me away. The first time I sat down, I had lunch with you in California, and you started explaining how you look at the weather patterns and then start to analyze which commodities are going to go up and down. I was getting ready to ask you, these forest fires in California, some of the worst in history. I mean, is that already affecting some of your commodities you're looking at?
No, not really, because they're up in Northern California, and the only thing they really grew up there are trees. You know, part of that problem up in Northern California was mismanagement on the part of the state. You know, I'm sure your listeners will remember the spotted owl. You know,
Yeah,
hey, we couldn't forest anymore. Well, these trees grown so thickly that they weren't harvested out, and these forests in California the density is 10 times what they should be. And they should.
I remember Yellowstone had that big conflagration, and
that was the same thing. They said, look, the trees grew like weeds because they weren't being thinned out, or what they were doing was called fire suppression. And just like anything else, you know, you suppress, boom. And so that's part of what's happening in Northern California is that the density is too thick, and they not harvested out there, and they suppressed the fires, and now it's just out of control. We had that thing down here in Southern California for a while. Trees have been thinned out here. So you see what happens normally, Paul, is I know we're on a tangent, but most of these fires in the West really need to burn the underbrush. You leave the pine trees alone, but the pine trees are so thick, it's just burning everything up.
Yeah,
and so that's
for so long. It's just
it's dried out. We're at 0% humidity.
Humidity. I mean, look, we're having a warm summer, but it's not an unusually warm summer. This is what happens during when we start getting solar minimums. You know, the Atlantic is getting extremely cold, and so what happens is it changes to high and low pressure systems, and then California dries out and gets really warm. And so that's to be expected. You know, we've had 200-year droughts here in California, but people seem to only remember yesterday.
right.
And so, but that's how we profit, because look, we see things other people see it, they just refuse to believe it. And you have to have the courage of your convictions to, you know, just like faith, right? You know, we see the Lord's our Savior. Other people may say that, but they don't really believe it, you
Right.
know. And so it's the same thing with trading, is that if you see something enough times, you know, okay, this is a good risk return to go ahead and make a trading decision.
Genius.com. That's tradelikeagenius.com. You can call them at 310-595-8626 and get some of the great insight and get the training you need. If you're out there and taking a look at your portfolio, they'll help you out, diversify. Some folks need to diversify, don't they, Bob?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. I mean, everything is really concentrated now, Paul. That's I really worry about that because that's what they're using to push the stock market up. You know, the 6 largest companies in the world are what reason why the stock market went up today. Everything else has been flat, and the Wall Street guys know this, and so they keep pushing money into those stocks because it lifts everything up. So when everybody gets home tonight, they're going to see the stock market almost at an all-time high, and they're sitting there going, "Oh wow!" And then they get their portfolio results, and like, why am I not doing as well as Wall Street? Because they're concentrating the bet. When that bet rolls over, it's going to become nasty for everybody, Paul. So we've been telling people, look, you buy the stuff that's down, and you start selling the stuff that's been up. And you know, precious metals, silver is on sale, folks. They're not making enough of it for the demand.
I mean, isn't this it's getting ready to happen in California by 2020, every new construction. Isn't that going to affect the silver market? The demand for silver, isn't that going to go up? Well,
Yeah, I mean, every solar panel has 2 ounces of silver in it. Okay, healthcare, every hospital has silver all over it because of its antimicrobial properties. You know, so and then gold is starting to be used more and more in high tech equipment. So this stuff's not going to stay suppressed forever. The dollar is suppressing the price right now. When this trade deal gets consummated, Paul, the dollar is going to come down some, and you're going to see gold and silver in these miners just absolutely rocket. People need to be building a position, and that's what I've been telling people in our room. Is that look, you need to have. We could trade in and out of some stuff, but you need to have a core position in silver and silver miners. And you need to start building a position in these food companies and these food ETFs, and because they're going to absolutely explode. And you know, the same with uranium, the same with lithium. All the stuff's just going to explode once the dollar stops going up so relentlessly.
Exchange traded fund. It's
the follow-on for mutual funds. So it's where they put you in when you do a basket of, like, I don't want to buy one miner because I'm afraid if it goes out of business I lost all my money. So they'll do a silver miner ETF and they'll put all the miners in that bucket.
I see.
So if one of them goes bad, then you know things and stuff like that, and somebody manages what's in there. So, but I like that the best because I hate single stock stories that I'll give you an example. One that's going to probably come up and bite people, and they don't believe it now. But you know, Apple's at all-time highs. Apple's over $1 trillion market cap, right. But their biggest supplier in China just got shut down.
What?
Yeah, TMSC. They have a virus running through all their equipment in China, and so they can't provide the parts to Apple.
Uh-oh.
And the stock price is not reflective of that yet.
Yeah, but it will. So,
and when Apple said, "Well, we missed our
sales target because we couldn't get the parts,"
that's not good.
You know,
then the stock will go down.
Yeah, and so those are the kind of things that we watch.
$1 billion in one day, Bob. I mean, but the market's still strong. Can you help us understand?
Yeah, well, because they have other companies that just bought back up. Look, the dollar's strong. Money's coming in from everywhere in the world, Paul, right now. Okay, I mean, look around the world. I mean, Turkey, Brazil. Did you see Brazil? Half the country wants to leave the country.
Look at Venezuela. They are leaving
Right,
the
and
country.
Turkey, yeah. So the wealthy are getting their money out of the country, and look, we're the one-eyed monster in the land of the blind. So that's what's helping it, and people have been trained to buy the dips, Paul.
Yeah.
So, we have, Apple, Facebook already seen the people talking. Hey, every time it dipped like this before, it was a great buying opportunity.
Yeah.
So, whenever you see a stock gap down here, I'll give your folks another tip. If something gaps down, you give it 7 days, and if you still like the company and you still like the sector, then buy the stock. Okay, because then everybody who wanted to sell has sold, and that's what's happening with Facebook. So Facebook went down today, it popped 3%, and so they just keep rotating these big names in, and because all these funds are passive, which means they're not actively managing what's buying and selling, is that nobody's really selling the market, so they can take a couple stocks like Facebook or Apple, or tomorrow it'll be Google and Netflix, and they can keep lifting the market until one day sellers will overwhelm the system, and then it'll be down like it was in 2018 and 2016, where in a week or two we're down 18 to 20%, and people will say, well, we never saw it coming. Well, I'm telling you guys right now, that's how fast it will be when it starts. I just don't know when that is going to be.
Wow.
So you be prudent, you start taking.
Genius.com. That's tradelikeagenius.com. Again, you can call them at 310-595-8626 and let them walk you through and help you in the trading area. It's a great guy, Christian, great company, and folks you can trust. And Bob, it's been a pleasure having you on again today. Very educational. I learned a ton of stuff today, so appreciate it.
If people can't get through the phone, chat works too.
Okay.
Email.
All right. Use the email, use the chat, and get involved, folks. TradeLikeAGenius.com. Bob, thank you so much for being here today, and look forward to next time.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
All right.